From Algiers, this is the World News Program. I'm Miriam Zian, and these are the headlines. 2 people were killed by occupation fire in Khan Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip. A newborn also died at Al-Shifa hospital as a result of extreme cold, as warnings mount over the occupation's increase in restrictions on humanitarian operations and their immediate impact on civilians. Also coming up, the army targeted strategic positions of the rapid support forces in Darfur. Organizations say RSF attacks on Kordofan have left dozens dead and forced thousands to flee as government warnings mount over the continued siege of civilians in Al-Fasher. And the death toll from the Ukrainian attack on Russia's Kherson has risen to 27. Russia is calling on the United Nations to condemn the attack, while the Ukrainian army says its strikes are limited exclusively to military targets and energy facilities. Hello and welcome back to the details. First, 2 Palestinian civilians were killed by Israeli occupation forces in 2 separate incidents in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza. Local sources in Khan Yunis reported on Friday that 1 civilian was shot dead by Israeli forces in the Al-Tahliya area east of the city, while the second was killed after an Israeli crane opened fire on a school he was inside, on the outskirts of Khan Yunis. Israeli occupation forces carried out ground shelling at dawn on Friday, targeting various areas across the Gaza Strip. Media outlets citing Palestinian local sources reported that Israeli tanks opened fire within areas of troop deployment east of Khan Yunis and east of Gaza City. At the same time, Israeli forces blew up residential buildings in the Zaytun neighborhood east of Gaza City. An infant was killed at Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City as a result of extreme cold. Medical sources in Gaza confirmed on Friday that the infant died due to a severe drop in body temperature caused by the harsh cold conditions in the camps. They noted that the infant was admitted to the hospital 2 days ago and placed in intensive care, but later passed away. The people of the Gaza Strip continue to pay the price of genocide, struggling to survive amid harsh weather conditions and dire circumstances, most notably the severe shortage of aid, in addition to the bitter cold that has caused the deaths of many. Usama Ayadi has the report.
Despite their strenuous efforts to drain the rainwater from the fronts of their tattered tents due to the bad weather, Palestinians witness moments as harsh as wartime moments. The duality of bad weather conditions and hunger imposed by the blockade on the Gaza Strip have exacerbated the suffering of every living being in the Strip.
All the institutions operating in the Gaza Strip are responsible for us. The World Food Programme, UNICEF. We need gas deliveries so this incident doesn't happen again. We need battery-powered lighting so we don't have to light fires. There are people here who have nothing. They take a container, pour fuel into it, light a candle, and make makeshift candles with the fuel. Why? Because we have no electricity or lighting. Have mercy on us. Our children died yesterday.
The reality of sleeping on the ground and having only the sky as a blanket has become an unbearable burden for Gazans, given the harsh conditions they endure as a result of a war of extermination, exacerbated by the bitter cold. This reality has claimed the lives of children, women, and the elderly as they face several sources of mortal danger. Palestinians are subjected to the dangers that go unchecked by consciousness that fail to address their harm. During this relentless conflict, Palestinians find no shelter and embrace, no peaceful refuge where children can feel safe. The number of sudden deaths rises each day, the most recent being the death of a 4-year-old child in his mother's arms, burned by the very fire meant to warm his chilled body.
The oil became extremely hot and ignited.
burning the young man who was sitting there preparing dinner for himself, his son, and his mother. The boiling oil caught fire and burned him instantly. His mother tried to extinguish the flames, but the fire spread to her and the tent. That night, the winds were very strong, and their direction was the factor that turned this fire into a catastrophe.
In Gaza, airstrikes continue without pause, and famine remains severe. More than 2 years into the devastating war, the suffering of the blockaded residents of the Strip persists, with no safe shelter in sight. Observers of the situation also expressed deep concern about the long-term consequences once the war ends.
Doctors Without Borders said the Israeli occupation is threatening to revoke its registration along with that of other international organizations in the Gaza Strip and the occupied West Bank. In a statement on Friday, the organization said the move constitutes a grave violation of international humanitarian law and poses a direct threat to civilians, adding that it fears Israel may condition registration on the handover of data on Palestinian staff working with the organization. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has called on Israel to reverse legislation that allows for the execution of Palestinians under certain conditions. UN High Commissioner Volker Turk said the Israeli legislation permitting the execution of Palestinians constitutes a flagrant violation of international law, adding that proposals before the Knesset raised concerns about discrimination against Palestinians. The Israeli occupation forces launched a series of intense airstrikes targeting several areas in southern Lebanon. According to Lebanese media reports, on Friday, Israel carried out heavy airstrikes targeting the Akhmata plain and the outskirts of Al-Rayhan, as well as 3 airstrikes on the valley area between the towns of Kafrawa and Azza in Nabatia district. The same sources added that Israeli forces fired several air-to-ground missiles at the towns of Ansar and Al-Zariya. Lebanese Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Mitri called on the country's security agencies to cooperate with Syrian authorities and work to prevent any actions that undermine Syria's unity or threaten its security and stability from within Lebanon or originating from it. In a post on X, Mitri stressed the need for Lebanese security agencies to take appropriate measures against any suspicious movements. Yemen's Hadramaut governor announced on Friday the launch of what he called a peaceful operation aimed, according to him, at regaining military sites. In a statement, he said the operation seeks the orderly and peaceful handover of military positions and is directed exclusively at camps and military sites, stressing that it is not a declaration of war nor an attempt to escalate.
We announce to the public that what is taking place today comes within the framework of an organized operation with limited objectives and a clearly defined course, dubbed the Camp Handover Operation. It is an operation of positioning aimed at a peaceful and orderly transfer of control of military sites, directed exclusively at camps and military positions.
Hadramaut governor announced on Friday that government Homeland Shield forces had taken control of 37th or the 37th Brigade camp in the El-Hisha area, north of the governorate. Yemen's official television quoted the governor, who also serves as the commander of the Homeland Shield forces in the region, as saying his forces seized control of the 37th Brigade camp, one of Hadramaut's vital military installations, following clashes with forces affiliated with the Southern Transitional Council. And Saudi Arabia announced on Friday that the so-called Southern Yemeni Transitional Council had refused to grant landing permission to a plane carrying Saudi delegation in Aden on Thursday. Saudi ambassador to Yemen Mohammed Al-Jaber said in a post on X that the Council's President, Idros al-Sbeidi, rejected the landing permit for the Saudi delegation's aircraft. He added that Saudi Arabia has faced continued refusal and obstruction from him despite weeks of efforts up to Thursday to de-escalate the situation. Arab Coalition spokesman Brigadier General Turki al-Maliki announced that the Royal Saudi Naval Forces have completed their deployment in the Arabian Sea to begin inspection operations and counter smuggling. Al-Maliki said the deployment aims to enhance maritime monitoring and carry out operational missions to ensure security and stability in the region. In Sudan, the army announced that its forces had successfully targeted what it described as strategic positions belonging to the Rapid Support Forces in Darfur. Sources from the Sudanese army told Al-24 News on Friday that the armed forces, along with allied units, carried out concentrated attacks targeting the so-called Legislative Council of the Rapid Support Forces in the city of Nyala, as well as sites used by Hemeti's forces to store weapons and fuel in other parts of the Darfur region, causing significant material losses among their ranks. And the Sudanese Mashhad Relief Organization says dozens have been killed and thousands displaced by what it called or described as intensified, systematic RSF attacks on civilian neighborhoods in Kordofan, worsening the security and humanitarian crisis amid a near-total collapse of basic services.
We in the infantry know that if the bloodshed and the violence are inflicted on the civilian population in the Kordofan region, in the context of the ongoing conflict and the escalation of the violence, including the grave violations that have directly and indirectly affected civilians, the military operations and the escalation that are being carried out by the security forces against civilian populations in Kordofan, in particular, have led to the displacement of a large number of civilians and the exodus of families in dire humanitarian conditions and the complete collapse of basic services.
بالغة القساوة وسط انهيار كامل للخدمات الأساسية.
The head of the Mashhad Humanitarian Relief Organization added that the world's silence over what is happening in Kordofan is no longer acceptable, stressing that protecting civilian lives is a duty that cannot be delayed.
أن استمرار هذه الانتهاكات
The continuation of these violations represents a blatant violation of international humanitarian law and human rights, particularly the principles of distinction, proportionality, and the protection of civilians. We call upon the international community to act now, not merely issue statements of condemnation, but to take immediate action to protect civilians and stop this brutal war that has claimed the lives of women, children, and men.
في تغذية الحرب كجماعات إرهابية.
And the Sudanese government confirmed that the Rapid Support Forces continue to besiege civilians in the city of Al-Fashir in North Kordofan State, or North Darfur, under the threat of weapons and execution. In statements to Al-24 News on Friday, Sudanese Minister of State for Social Welfare, Salima Ishaq, said that Al-Fashir remains a scene of crimes committed by the Rapid Support Forces. The developments in Al-Fashir are now a crime scene, no matter how much the militia tries to cover up or create the illusion that people are living peacefully and there are no problems. But we know perfectly well the Rapid Support Forces' motives everywhere. The threat of weapons is enough to make people say anything. However, there is a committee that will address those accusations leveled against the Rapid Support Forces due to the unprecedented events that occurred in Al-Fashir.
بسبب الانتهاكات غير المسبوقة التي حدثت في الفاشر.
In the same context, the Sudanese minister emphasized that dispatching an international fact-finding mission to Al-Fashir in North Darfur is a crucial step toward accountability, despite delays in the international community's inadequate response to the tragedies affecting civilians there. Of course, the lengthy investigation committee was crucial despite the initial obstacles. The international community's actions in Al-Fashir could have prevented what is happening in Kordofan. It could have prevented the militia's lack of response and the use of dormant militias alongside them. This was a grave mistake and a great betrayal of the Sudanese people, especially the people of Darfur. At the very least, this will be part of the international community's effort to bring about real change or a genuine accountability for the blatant forces of aggression. And the North Darfur Emergency Rooms Council issued a severe warning of a deepening humanitarian crisis in Umbaru, North Darfur, due to the ongoing war. Over 6,500 families have been forced to flee to nearby valleys and villages, sleeping outdoors in harsh winter conditions without basic necessities, as health services, including the area's sole ambulance, have completely collapsed. And in other news, the Polisario Front stated that 2025 cemented the Sahrawi state as an irreversible reality on the continental and international levels, emphasizing that the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination remains the sole solution to their cause. Polisario UN representative Mohammed Sidi Omar noted that one of 2025's key achievements was the continued consolidation of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic as a recognized national, regional, continental, and international entity, thanks to the enduring struggle and sacrifices of the Sahrawi people.
2025 enshrined the Sahrawi state as an irreversible continental and international reality and the enabling of the Sahrawi people to exercise their right to self-determination as the only solution to the Sahrawi issue. Among the most significant gains for the Sahrawi cause which were witnessed in 2025 was the continued consolidation and establishment of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic as an irreversible national, regional, continental, and international reality thanks to the struggle and sacrifices of the Sahrawi people.
He also highlighted the broad international support enjoyed by the Sahrawi cause in various international forums, adding that the United Nations has reaffirmed that Western Sahara is an occupied territory which constitutes recognition of the inalienable right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination.
The Sahrawi cause enjoys significant international support in various fora, especially since the United Nations General Assembly considers the Sahrawi issue a decolonization matter. Just days before the end of the 2025 term, the UN reaffirmed that Western Sahara is an occupied territory, thus acknowledging the inalienable right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination, freedom, and independence in accordance with General Assembly Resolution 1514. This UN resolution carries significant added value and represents the strongest response to the lies of the occupation and its persistent attempts to circumvent the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination.
Sidi Omar further stressed that the Polisario Front will continue its legal battle to put an end to the plundering of the Sahrawi people's resources and to impose sovereignty over them.
The Polisario Front will continue its legal battle to stop the plundering of the Sahrawi people's resources and to impose their sovereignty over their resources in line with a solid legal foundation based on the rulings issued by the European Court of Justice on October 4, 2024, which uphold the Sahrawi people's right not only to self-determination but also to permanent sovereignty over their resources.
Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune sent condolences on Friday to the family of freedom fighter and historian Mohammed Harbi, who passed away at 93. In a message published on the presidency's Facebook page, Mr. Tebboune expressed deep sorrow over Harbi's death, describing him as an exceptional figure who joined the anti-colonial struggle early, fought in the Liberation Revolution, and served as a senior official in the provisional government of the Algerian Republic. After independence, Harbi dedicated himself to writing and research, producing valuable works on the national movement and the liberation revolution. The president extended his heartfelt condolences to Harbi's family and the revolutionary community, praying for God's mercy on the deceased and patience and solace for his loved ones. Now moving on to other news, the death toll from the attack carried out by the Ukrainian army in the Kherson region has risen to 27. Russian Investigative Committee spokesperson Svitlana Petrenko told reporters on Friday that 27 people, including children, were killed as a result of the attack carried out by the Ukrainian armed forces in the town of Korly in Kherson. Russia has urged the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to issue a direct and public condemnation of Ukraine's attack on the Kherson region. Russia's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva called for an immediate denunciation of what he described as a brutal Ukrainian strike that caused civilian casualties, including children. He warned that remaining silent would amount to aiding and abetting what he termed the bloody crimes of neo-Nazis. A spokesperson for Ukraine's general staff said that Ukrainian forces target only Russian military positions or energy facilities. Commenting on a drone airstrike on a hotel in a Russia-controlled part of the Kherson region, the Ukrainian military spokesperson stressed that Ukraine's defense forces are committed to the standards of international humanitarian law and strike exclusively hostile military targets, as well as Russian fuel and energy facilities, what he described as legitimate targets. Iran's Supreme National Security Council Secretary Ali Larijani warned that any U.S. interference in Iran's protests would spread chaos across the region and destroy American interests, as he put it. Larijani made the remarks on Friday in response to statements by U.S. President Donald Trump, who warned that Washington would intervene if Iran used lethal force against peaceful protesters. Iran's foreign ministry said Iranians will not allow any form of foreign interference in their dialogue and engagement to resolve internal issues. In a post on X on Friday, Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai condemned what he described as blatant interference in Iran's internal affairs, saying that reviewing the long record of actions taken by U.S. politicians to save the Iranian people is enough to understand the extent of Washington's claimed sympathy with Iranians. And in the United States, New York City's newly inaugurated mayor Zohran Mamdani pledged to set an example for the world by proving that the left can govern. Speaking before a large crowd gathered in freezing temperatures outside City Hall in Manhattan on Thursday, the Democratic Socialist mayor vowed not to retreat from his campaign promises, which focused on tackling the high cost of living.
They want to know if the left can govern. They want to know if the struggles that afflict them can be solved. They want to know if it is right to hope again. So standing together with the wind of purpose at our backs, we will do something that New Yorkers do better than anyone else. We will set an example for the world.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said he's open to cooperation with the U.S., despite Washington's recent pressure on Caracas, including the deployment of warships in the Caribbean. In an interview with VTV television aired Thursday, Maduro said he is ready to discuss counter-narcotics efforts, oil, and economic agreements with Washington amid ongoing tensions.
Nosotros hemos tenido, Ramón, una sola
We must start to speak seriously, with the facts in hand. The US government knows that, because we have said it a lot to their interlocutors, that if they want to speak seriously about an agreement to battle drug trafficking, Venezuela is ready to accept US investments like those in Chevron, when, where, and how they want to make them.
Cuando quieran, donde quiera y como quieran.
And in the heart of the Algerian desert at Chut, oasis in Naama, 1,200 young people from 35 African and Arab countries gathered for the first African youth communication camp, celebrating dialogue, unity, and a new youth-led democracy or diplomacy through culture and sports. Hossam Barkan has more.
Under the skies of Chut, and within the embrace of its green oasis, African and Arab youth are writing a new chapter in the story of regional closeness. 1,200 young participants carrying the dreams of their homelands in their hearts and the spark of the future in their eyes, coming together in a unique experience that transcends dialects, languages, and geographical borders.
Honestly, it's our first time here in Amma, specifically in this area called Tut, mashallah. It's truly a prime tourist destination. As content creators in the tourism field, we are going to explore this place. Today, we are at the African Youth Communication Camp, which is honestly an amazing opportunity to meet African youth, discuss among ourselves, exchange ideas, and talk about challenges.
This is my first time visiting Naama province, and I realized that there are many beautiful places here. At this camp, many young people from Arab and African countries have come together, and God willing, it'll be an opportunity for them to get to know other youths and build connections. Today, they're in Algeria. Tomorrow, perhaps we will visit them. God willing, it'll be a meaningful experience for the youth and a chance for them to learn more about themselves.
From camping tents to exploration trails, and from sports arenas to cultural performances, new friendships are formed and bridges of trust are built. On the second day of the camp, Ain Al-Warqa guided a guest into a breathtaking world of natural beauty. There, amid stunning landscapes, African youth discovered Algeria's hidden treasures.
This is a really good experience. I get to meet people from different countries, different nationalities, and yeah, so far so good. I've enjoyed my time here.
The region's ancient Ksur tell visitors stories of ancestral glory. Rock engravings recount a history that transcends time, while traditional handcraft exhibitions reflect the deep-rooted authenticity of Tut.
We all believe that we are in the same continent, as it's just a matter of a location, and Algeria is our second home, and we like to share our ideas as a youth, because the future of Africa is on us.
Here in the city of Tut, the Ministry of Youth has adopted two approaches. The first is dedicating a youth camp with a capacity of 400 beds for this area. The second approach is that this camp will be officially established as an annual camp to be held here in this region.
Tut today is not merely an oasis in the Algerian desert, but a platform for dialogue and a mirror of the ambitions of a generation that believes the future is built through cooperation and solidarity.
The end of our program. Thanks for joining us, and have a great night.